This is Audible.
The Scrooge Conspiracy. Written by Anna Elliott and Charles Veley. Narrated by Iona Campbell. Epigraph. There are dark shadows on the earth, but its lights are stronger in the contrast. Charles Dickens, 1838. The Posthumous Papers of the Pickwick Club, Chapter 57. Prologue. The bells of St. Mary's Church rang out across Crofter's Green that crisp October morning, their joyful peals carrying the news that had the entire village buzzing with excitement. It was 11 o'clock, 15th of October 1941, and Catherine Chapman was about to become Mrs. Blake Collins. The ancient stone church had never looked lovelier. Its Norman arches shone with trailing ivy and the last of the autumn roses from Alice Greenleaf's garden. Golden light streamed through the stained glass windows, casting jewelled patterns across the worn flagstones of the sanctuary, where generations of villagers had celebrated life's most precious moments. Nearly every seat was filled, a remarkable turnout for a Wednesday morning wedding. The congregation buzzed with the comfortable gossip that marked any proper village celebration. "Where do you suppose they'll live?" whispered Mrs. Benton to her neighbour, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. "Can't stay in that tiny room of Blake's forever." "I've heard they've taken Mrs. Hodgkin's larger suite," came the reply, accompanied by a meaningful nod toward the grey-haired matronly woman beaming in the third pew. Mrs. Hodgkins, owner of the boarding house where Blake had resided since he'd come to Crofter's Green, fairly glowed with maternal pride, as if she were personally responsible for this romantic triumph. "Speaking of changes," Mrs. Whitfield leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "have you heard about the goings-on at Oakwood Manor?" "Oh?" Mrs. Benton's ears pricked up immediately. "Young Lawrence and his father had quite a row last week. Something about their Christmas performance. Lord Oakwood's none too pleased from what I hear. Something about an actor from London." "Theatrical people," sniffed Mrs. Patterson. "Never know what to expect from that sort." Behind them, old Mr. Stubbins adjusted his best tie and nodded thoughtfully. "Mind you, it makes sense with all those children at the manor now. They'll want to be part of it, won't they?" "Still," Mrs. Patterson added with a slight frown, "bringing in someone from London seems a bit much. Surely they could manage something themselves." The conversation might have continued, but Mrs. Whitfield suddenly remembered where they were and who might be listening. She glanced meaningfully toward the front of the church, where several members of the local gentry sat in places of honour, and the gossip died away to safer topics. "And the honeymoon?" pressed another voice. "Someone said Lake Windermere. All that lovely scenery." "Nonsense," declared Mrs. Whitfield, grateful to return to less controversial subjects. "It's a posh hotel in London, mark my words, paid for as a reward for Blake's help in solving that important case. You know, the one that's still so secret nobody's talking about it." The truth was, nobody really knew where the happy couple was bound, but they all agreed on one thing. Both would be back by Monday. Blake had his classes to teach at the village school, and Catherine had some work on with the Women's Land Army local administration office, though how busy they'd be over the winter months remained to be seen. A hush fell over the congregation as Reverend Markham appeared from the transept, his gaunt, grey-haired figure dignified by his pristine white surplice. Behind him came the bridegroom and his best man, and the assembled villagers couldn't help but smile at the sight. Blake Collins stood tall and strong in his neatly pressed blue serge suit, his shoulders straight and his step confident. Beside him, Harry Jenkins cut a distinguished figure despite being shorter and decidedly more grey around the temples than his young friend. "Look how well Blake's doing," whispered someone admiringly. "Should have seen him last winter. Bent over, shuffling, both legs still giving him trouble from Dunkirk." "Still doing his exercises, I'm told,"